Hi again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Around the Town with Chuck. My name is Chuck Guglielmo, a weekly interview show where we talk with interesting people around the community. And returning to the show, we had him maybe less than a year ago, John Kampf of the Lake County News Herald. John, thanks for coming back.
Hey, glad to have you. Glad to be here.
At that time, we introduced you as a sports writer of the Lake County News Herald. Now you just received an award, Ohio Sports Writer of the Year.
Yeah, that was a real humbling honor.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It was real nice. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. And tell us a little bit, John, for the viewers that may have not seen our first interview, give us a little background on yourself before we go with the interview.
Well, I'm a 1987 Grand Valley graduate, so I am an Ashtabula County guy. Always have been, and I really take a lot of pride in that. I graduated in 87 from Grand Valley, went to Ohio State, and I graduated from Ohio State in 1991 in the News Editorial Journalism Department. I started off at the Jefferson Gazette. That's where I had my first writing experience. And after the Gazette, I went to the Ashtabula Star-Beacon. I was there for 4 or 5 years. And then I've been at the News Herald now since July of 2001. So yeah, it's been a long time, surprisingly. I've been there for more than 15 years now. But yeah, life's great. I still enjoy going to games. I still enjoy being around home, seeing people like yourself. So yeah, life's good. I can't complain.
Of course, John covers a lot of the high school sports, mainly in Lake County. Every once in a while you may get a sport here in Ashtabula County. John, let's do a little high school sports before we move on to the pro sports.
Sure.
Pro sports. This was a good year for wrestling in Ashtabula County. I think we had 10 go to the States, and 2 of them won the States. I know Gage Willis, who was undefeated at PV Lakers, the guy from St. John, I can't think of his name right now.
Jacob Lagoa.
Yes, and you got to see them because you were covering that. Tell us a little bit your thoughts on those 2 wrestlers and the other 8 that also went down.
You know, I talked to some people before the season even started, and I thought this was a chance that Ashtabula County could get maybe up to 13 or 14 down there if everything played out right. But that's got to be a county record to get that many down there. I don't know the history of that. I'm guessing you would have to go back to maybe the early 1980s when Grand Valley had Bill Nye, Buddy Drozd, and Mike Fletcher. Rick Bruno was there from Conneaut, and I think one of the Tokenen boys from Jefferson. But you'd have to go back a ways before anybody in Ashtabula County had that solid of a program all the way around. So it's exciting, and the best thing is a lot of these kids are underclassmen. You know, Jacob Lagoa is only a freshman, tremendous athlete. I saw him for the first time at the Solon Comet Classic, and I saw him just rip through kids who were Division I and Division I high schools. So I was like, wow, this kid's really special. That's the first time I'd seen Jacob wrestle. I was so impressed. I actually went to the wrestling room one day to watch him practice to see if this kid's the real deal. And when you watch Jacob Lagoa practice, he practices it. There's no time off. I mean, he's drilling hard. A lot of his wrestling is with David Cumberledge, who I think is going to be another kid from St. John who could win a state championship next year. Jacob's dad came in and drilled with him. And every drill is 100%. I mean, I've never seen a work ethic from a kid like that who's a freshman. He just goes and goes. And Gage Willis, and what do you say? Undefeated junior year, went to state championship, just dominating.
And runner-up last year, right?
And runner-up last. I don't know if he gave up an offensive point the entire tournament. We're talking
that's incredible.
Sectional, district, and state. I don't think he did a single offensive point. I mean, just a dominating wrestler. And they're both back next year, so it's really exciting. It is.
And I think for both those schools, PV and St. John, it was their first ever state championship wrestling individual. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. And I feel both those coaches do a great job. I've known Coach Blank since we were right out of high school. So he does a tremendous job over at St. John, and he's building something special. They could get a handful of kids down there next year. Like I mentioned David Cumberledge a little bit ago. I think the Burgard kid's real good. They've got an Elrod boy. They've got a real nice group there where they might be able to get 3 or 4 kids down to state. And I think they've got a chance really to get on that top 10 board where they've got the team rankings down there next year.
And they were pretty spread out from the county. I know we had one here from Connie, we had one from Jefferson, I think there was a Grand Valley guy. I'm not sure about Ed. I don't think Edgewood had a representative this year.
Edgewood did not this year. Geneva almost did. Juan Rodriguez. I think that Juan Rodriguez was this close. He finished, I think, 38-3 this year. Just a couple untimely losses at the district wrestling tournament. He had a great year. Jefferson's got, Austin Norris made it down, but they've got, the young Bate boy who almost made it down this year. They've got some nice young parts down there that I think they could get some out. So we could see Ashtabula County have another year like this next year just because they are so young in the wrestling.
John, do you see wrestling here in Ashtabula County? Do you see wrestling as a growing sport?
I think it's thriving here better than it is in some places. And I think just because the programs are so entrenched. I love the coaches we have in this area, and I think that has a lot to do with it. I think that, Grand Valley's got a real young coach, and I believe he is a Conneaut boy, isn't he?
I need the name. I can't think of the name.
Yeah, I will think.
Maybe.
His father was a referee. I will think of that in a second. But Tom Avsek, you've got Scott Blank. We talked about him. Stolfer over here. He and his son are both working in Edgewood. They do a great job. I think Chris Stamper's doing a tremendous job out there at Geneva building things up. So they've got so many things going on in the county right now where they've got good young coaches that are excited, and I think that it's kind of bringing the sport back in the county. It's not like that everywhere, unfortunately. I think it's a great sport, but Ashtabula County is kind of like an anomaly where they're coming up, where a lot of the other areas kind of going down a little bit.
What would you see attendance-wise at wrestling matches?
The duels, not real high, unfortunately. Once we got when they got to the state duel tournament, the regional duels, then you started to see it a little bit more. But it's not a real fan-friendly sport when you get into those big tournaments, because if you go to a big tournament where there's 20 teams or something, and you've got 8 mats going at the same time, a bout board that's a little bit difficult to follow if you're not really in the wrestling circles. You're there all day and it's hectic action. You might be waiting for one match. You look over here and you look back and you just miss what happened on that match. So it's not real fan friendly, and I think that's something that's hurting the sport a little bit. And I don't know how to fix that, because so much of the sport, it does revolve around those big tournaments like that.
Let's go to basketball.
Okay.
Start with the girls. Now, St. John this year was the only team in the county to win a postseason game, and that seems strange after watching Nancy Barbell's teams win year after year after year. And it was good to see Nick Irochi get County Coach of the Year.
I am such a fan of Nick Irochi. I've known him for a long time, and if you don't like Nick Irochi,
you don't like anybody.
Yeah, exactly. He is just the nicest guy in the world.
He is.
Every year after year, the kids buy into his program. He's excited about it. I mean, his excitement spills over to the way his kids
sure
play.
Does.
And I was so happy when I saw it. They won a tournament game, and they're doing well over there. He does such a good job. He just bleeds that blue and white over there from St. John. And and I love to see when he has success. He's a good friend of mine, and I was real happy that he had some success this year.
They did. They had a lot of success. I think they won 12 games. He told me the other day
great.
at the banquet it was the most they've won since I think 08 or 09, something like that. So it's good to see that program coming back. And we mentioned Nancy Barbell in Geneva. I think it was the first time in 9 years that she didn't win a postseason game.
Right, and that was just tough. When you lose your best player right before the tournament time, Haley Peoples just makes everybody around her better. She's a dominating post presence. When the ball goes into her, the defense collapses, and if she doesn't go up with a shot and make it or get fouled, she's so good. She's got great court vision where she can get the ball to the open players. She knows where the help from defense came from, and she can get it to them. And when you lose something like that, pretty much everything that your offense and even your defense revolved around, when you lose that so late in the season, you don't really have time for everybody to find new roles and gel in. But Nancy does a great job. With all due respect to the talent that they have in Geneva over the years, she gets the most out of everything, even if there's not a lot of God-given talent there. She's a tremendous coach. She's got a great system. And from 7th grade on up, everybody buys in. And that's what I really appreciate about what Nancy Barbell does there.
Man, a lot of good names have come out of the Geneva Girls program.
Yeah, sure, exactly.
It's amazing. It's incredible. Let's switch over to the boys basketball. We were lucky. We were able to call the Jefferson Edgewood district semifinal game.
Yeah.
Great game to call. Had Steve and Sam on my show here recently. 2-time County Player of the Year, Sam Hitchcock. And I didn't realize this, but Steve French had won it 4 consecutive years in a row. Talk a little bit about what you know about those two.
Steve French is a tremendous young man. I've known him since he was in high school, and the kids love him. He is so mild-mannered. You don't see him yell. He's not a ranter and raver. And I think kids appreciate that. It's a different type of kid that's in school now that when I was in school back in the 80s, where you might be able to get into a kid's face a little bit and you bring the most out of him. the way that Steve French coaches, he is so positive and he's so constructive that when he gets these kids going, I mean, he builds them up so much. They believe. He could tell them, it's such an overused cliche, that you could run through a brick wall. These kids believe that they can. And every kid on that team really bought into what they were supposed to do. Ralph Giancola, he was the open court guy that could really make things happen in transition. John Jackson took so much pride, even in practice, defending. I went to my nephew plays at Jefferson, so I went and saw their meet the team night, and he was playing defense. No one plays defense in a meet the team night. I mean, everybody's out there trying to get this like open gym, and he was in Sam Hitchcock's face the entire night and D'ing him up, and I was like, gee. But to my point, John Jackson embraces what he was supposed to do. That's play great defense and then maybe hit some shots. Sam Chaney, if you let him stand still, he'll hit every three-pointer. He embraced that role. Sam, I give him credit, he knew he was a scorer, but he was also good about facilitating and get everybody else involved. Like I just said with Haley Peoples, when the double team comes, when the trap comes, he knew where the extra person came from. You get that pass out to him. Oftentimes it was Sam Chaney because that's where it came from the outside. If you had him and Sam on the same side, where the ball goes into the post to Sam, to Sam Hitchcock, I should say. The defense comes from Sam Chaney's guy. Boom, you throw it to the outside, he hits the three. He was really good about finding the open man. Sisson. I mean, everybody on that court knew what they were supposed to do. And I think that, to Steve French's credit, he told everybody what their job was, and everybody embraced those rules. That's why they were successful.
You mentioned Sisson. You don't hear too much about him, but he had a great game against Edgewood in that district semifinal.
He's the kind of kid that at the end of the game, you look at the box score and you're like, yeah, he didn't do too much. But what he does is not quantified in a box score.
Exactly.
I mean, he handles the ball,
Exactly.
He plays defense, and coaches appreciate that. A parent might appreciate it, but the general basketball mind who's out watching the game thinking, Caden Sisson didn't do too much. Well, yeah. No, he really did.
He made life miserable for the Kaniki boys, what he did.
Yeah, and that's... And like I said before, that's what Steve French gets the kids to say, hey, This is what we need you to do for us. This is what we need you to do for us. And those kids embrace it. And that's why Steve French is so successful as a coach.
It was a good year for players of boys basketball this year in the county. We had three of them, Hitchcock being one, Marcus Ernst and Tony Masucci, all scored over 1,000 points.
Right.
That's an incredible feat, as you know. Of course, they say, well, the 3 points in effect. That's true. Back 30 years ago, maybe it wasn't, but Sam Hitchcock was not a three-point shooter.
No, he could hit the three-point shot, but he didn't. I don't think his best shot was a three-pointer. He could hit it. Masucci, the different players, what you do is you find what you do well. And it's one thing to score, but everybody else, all those three guys that you just mentioned, they make their teammates better. And that's more important than scoring 1,000 points. They're able to get other players involved. Masucci, when the pick comes up and he comes off of that and there's a roll, he can find that open guy. When the double team goes in on Marcus Ernst, he can find that extra pass. They make their teams better, and it's not just because they're out there scoring the ball. They do other things too that might not show up in a box score, but they're very, very valuable.
Mm-hmm. When game 19 of the season came around, they played a 22-game schedule. I wrote on my Facebook page, I thought it was going to be very tough to pick a County Boys Player of the Year between Hitchcock and Ernst. And then I went out on my limb and I said, but I'm going to pick Hitchcock because I felt, John, correct me if I'm wrong, that if you took him away from that team, I don't think their chances are as good as winning as if you would have taken Ernst away from Edgewood. But that district semifinal told me I was wrong, because that supporting cast that you mentioned for the Falcons was very good.
A lot better than people gave him credit for.
Yes.
And before that game, I was on the same wavelength that you were. I thought the same way. Like I said, the News Herald, we don't cover Jefferson and Edgewood, so I'm kind of on the outside looking in. I don't see all of their games, but I thought at that point that Sam was the most valuable player just because he was the one that was most indispensable to his team. But to Jefferson's credit, they were able to slow down Marcus Ernst in that game, and that was a little bit of an eye opener there. I wasn't sure. I thought that the other people would step up, but you know what? They're 16, 17, 18-year-old kids, so you never know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen with the professional sports, and they're getting paid millions of dollars.
Right.
So it's crazy. But yeah, great year for all those guys. Coach Bowler did a great job over at Edgewood. It was nice to see them hanging a championship banner on the wall. I know that the people at Edgewood worked very hard for that. And it's nice to see them have some success because I know they bounced around from some conferences, and that's a tough place down the All-American Conference. So kudos to Edgewood for putting a banner on the wall this year.
Yeah, and Chris Turner, the coach at St. John, has to get some credit too. I mean, he
Yes.
won 16 games for the Heralds. He did a very good job. So it was a good year, I thought, for boys basketball for the most part in a lot of the county schools.
It was. I think if you take, maybe girls basketball might have been a little bit down this year, but in general, you look at it, wrestling was really on a high note.
Mm-hmm.
I thought boys basketball really had a high note, and then we already talked about what Nick Irochi did. You know, girls basketball around here has historically been the straw that stirs the winter sports drink in Ashtabula County. But this year, the boys basketball team and the wrestling had their year, so it's going to happen like that. It's cyclical.
At the ACBF, the banquet we have here in Conneaut, it was a thrill for me to be able to interview the Hitchcock generation.
Oh, yeah.
Bob, to his father, I think his father's name was Doug, and then Sam himself. That was a thrill, just to have all three. It was very emotional, not just for them, but for me as well, doing that interview. It's just such a great basketball name, and of course it is an Andover name, really, isn't it, John?
Yes. Bob actually played ball back when my dad played back in the Grand Valley and Pymatuning era, and great people. The Hitchcocks are, I've known them, been blessed to have them as friends for years. Bob Hitchcock, he was coach of Pymatuning when I was at Grand Valley. His brother Gordy, and then their sons Doug and Gordy were both right around my age, and some of the other girls, Kim and Ann. And you just go to Jackie. I cover Jackie's daughter now. She's up at Perry. Mm-hmm. So the Hitchcock family, just great people. And if I could sit at a basketball game, and I did it one time. I sat between Bob Hitchcock and Tom Henson.
Oh my goodness!
I didn't say
what a wealth of knowledge.
I didn't say a word the entire game. I wish I would have audio taped it just as
What a wealth of knowledge.
Oh my gosh, just tremendous. And to this day, I miss Tom Henson. He's was a great friend of mine, a confidant. And then, he's no longer with us, unfortunately. But Bob Hitchcock, to this day, if I run into him, I just love talking to him because you just hear the stories, the experiences he's been through. I would have loved to have been at the banquet that night to hear what all the Hitchcocks were saying, because just great people. And you see that now they're on a fourth generation. You got Bob's dad, you got Bob. You had Doug, and now you've got Sam. So great family, good people.
And they told me we got another Hitchcock coming up. I think he's in the 6th grade over there in Jefferson.
Yes,
Sam's younger brother. So he's coming up too.
And he's a tremendous ball handler. He's out in the driveway playing all the time and stuff.
They said he's going to be better than Sam, if you can believe that.
He may be a better ball handler. We'll see. I'm not sure he's going to be as tall as Sam. That might be the problem. But yeah, great people the Hitchcocks are, and I'm always happy to see that they're doing well. When I went to the senior night down there, listening, as good of an athlete as Sam is, his academic stuff is off the charts.
4.0.
Yeah, I mean,
wants to be a doctor.
I mean, my jaw probably bounced off the bleachers that day when they were reading off his credentials at the senior, and I was like, wow. I mean, that's impressive when you get a young man like that.
Oh, amazing, and a polite man.
Very much.
Very polite. Well, John, let's move on to the professional sports now. Of course, our Cleveland Cavaliers are in the Eastern Conference playoffs.
Yes.
I don't know about you, but I don't think they're playing very well. What do you think?
No, the short answer is no. They're not playing real well, especially on the defense side of the ball.
Are you worried?
No, not really. I mean, part of me would be. I don't think I am, just because I think that this is a team that they're veteran. I think that they set a lot of these guys out. They kept them rested. I think now it's game time. I was a little worried that they only won 109 to 108 the other day. But when the number 1 seed and number 3 seed both lost, well, guess what? The other teams are trying too. So it's tough. It's real tough to win an NBA playoff game. I'm sure the Boston Celtics would like to take a 1-point win in their first game, and they end up losing. I think they're going to be fine. I think that they finally found some things that weren't working for them. If you saw that Iman Shumpert didn't get off the bench the other night, he's really been on a cold streak. I think they kind of narrowed this rotation down a little bit. And they're getting, Deron Williams playing more. They're getting Kyle Korver back in the swing of things. They had a lot of injuries throughout the year that they really didn't get things meshed a lot. Maybe I'm just looking through rose-colored glasses, but I think they're going to be fine. I think that they've trimmed this rotation down a little bit, and I think they'll be okay going through the playoffs.
Do you think they win tonight?
Yes, I do. I think they win tonight, and I think that they split when they go on the road, and then they clinch it back here.
Well, that wouldn't be very nice.
We'll
John,
see.
what did you think during the regular season? I mean, there's been a lot of controversy with the Cavaliers as far as the general manager and the coach is concerned about resting players. I know the TV networks don't like it because they're paying big bucks to show those players on the
Right.
TV. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't like it either. I was waiting for them. Clinch the number one seed and then rest your players in the final week. That was my view, but I'd be interested to hear what your view was on all of that.
You know, as a fan, I can see it from both ways. As a fan, I'd be disappointed. If I bought tickets, if I bought my nephew's tickets to go see a game, I'm doing it predicated on the price. And the prices are set because of LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, Tristan Thompson, and Kevin Love. That's why the prices are what they are. And when you don't play them, it's like, well, geez, so what did I just pay that money for? If I wanted to watch a backup game or a JV game, why did I pay full price? So I understand it as a fan's point of view. From an NBA and from a team owner's point of view, I can see it the other way too. Say, hey, my job here isn't to put fans in seats. My job here is to win an NBA championship. And if my best way to win the NBA championship is to make sure these guys are rested properly and not overextended. And part of it is the NBA's problem too about how they schedule these games. When you schedule these back-to-back games, when they've got an overnight flight, you're playing the night game one night, and then you've got an overnight flight, you're playing another game the other night. Well, you know, maybe it's not a good idea to demand that. I mean, I don't know.
That's a good point because they had Charlotte included in their West Coast road trip here late in the year. How does Charlotte get into West Coast road trip?
That's pretty unfair. Yeah. So I do understand. There's a lot of moving parts here. They're going to have to find a way to do it. But for the NBA to come in and say you can't rest players, I'm not sure if that's the right thing to do because they've kind of put them in that situation of resting players by the way they've set the schedule up. Especially,
that's a good argument.
Lord forbid if you've got like a Saturday afternoon game that you play again, or a Saturday night game you play again Sunday afternoon. So if they can't make that demand unless they do something with how the games are scheduled.
That's a good argument. Are you okay with resting all three at the same time? I hear that argument too. Can't you just rest one and then play the other two and then rest one the next day and that kind of stuff? What's your thought process there?
My thought process there would be that if you're going to rest them all at the same time because then you're not handicapping yourself for multiple games. You're only handicapping yourself for one game. So if you're going to rest someone, rest them all for this game. So that way, if you take somebody out of this game, take somebody out of this game, take somebody out of this game, now you're shorthanded in all three games. But if you only rest them in one game, then you're full strength for the other two games. I'm not sure if that's valid of an argument, but that's how I would think of it.
That makes sense to me.
That maybe that's the way they're looking at it. That we don't want to short sheet ourselves for the entire season by resting somebody different a different day. Let's just rest them all one game. But like I said, if you're a fan and you've got that game, that's tremendously unfair, and I understand that.
So you think they win the series with the Pacers?
Yes, I do.
You think they advance through the East?
I do, and I like the way that this set up. I like them better as a 2 seed than I liked them as a 1 seed. I thought that when you see how all the seeds came out, I thought the road was easier as a 2 seed than it was as a 1 seed.
Yeah, I did.
Of course, they're all NBA players. They're all tough. Everybody's trying, so there are no gimmies. But I did like that matchup better than I did the other matchup.
Mm-hmm. And then if they are fortunate to win the East, what chance do you give them against the West?
Why? I think it's going to be Golden State again. I just think that they're too good. And if I had to be a betting man right now, I'd say probably Golden State in 6. I think that they have played better, more consistently all year. I think that everybody's motivated. I don't want to use that as an excuse of why that they would be motivated to win because everybody's motivated. But I just think they're the better all the way around team, and they've played better all consistently all year than the Cavs have. So right now, I would say Golden State in 6.
One more thing on the Cavaliers, John. If they are fortunate to go to the Eastern Conference Finals, and let's say they play Boston, and they have to go 7 games, that 7th game would be in Boston. And then if they win that, and then play Golden State, or whoever comes out of the West, you're going to be, with any one of those 3 teams, are going to have the home court over the Cavaliers. Then another 7-game series, can they win 2 Game 7s on the road?
That's a real good question, and that's something that they did. That was not a speed bump that they had to face last year. They just ran right through the Eastern Conference, so they were able to stay rested. They were not extended like that as much as Golden State was last year. So that's going to be a real good question because we've never had to do that before. Golden State has had to do that before. That might be another reason why you might say, well, Golden State might be the favorite because they have had to be extended more, and they will be more extended when you see what they've got to go through in the Western Conference compared to the Eastern Conference.
Let's go to the Cleveland Indians now for a minute.
Okay.
One of my favorites, of course. They've only played 12 games, off to a 5-7 start, but the Cubs aren't doing much better. I think they're like 6-6.
Right.
Is everybody after them, John? Is that what's going on?
I think that's part of it. I think part of it's that you press a little bit. It's a lot different when you were the hunter and the hunted. And for the last handful of years, for a number of years, the Indians have been the hunter. They've been the ones that were going after. It's a lot different when you've got the target on your back compared to, no one's got the target on you. They're the one who went outside the big free agent hitter. They're the one who went out and spent a lot of money on Boone Logan. They're the one who's supposed to be there. So yeah, there's a little bit more pressure that goes along with that. But I also think it's important to keep an even keel because last year they got swept by the Philadelphia Phillies. And there were a lot of people sweating then, and I will say this: it's a lot better to be 5-7 and have a higher ceiling than be 7-5 and think, boy, we're lucky to be here because this wasn't expected of us. I think they'll be okay. I think they're just pressing a little bit right now, and once they start to hit a stride a little bit, I think everything will be fine. But again, maybe that's just rose-colored glasses, but I think they'll be okay.
You're making me feel a little bit better already, Jeff.
Yeah, we're trying.
What do you see as their strong points?
Right off the top of it, my head, it's pitching. I mean, even
starters
the first
and bullpen?
Both. Yeah, you've got three hammers right at the top with Kluber and Carrasco and Salazar. Salazar is pitching at an unbelievable rate right now. Kluber's kind of not got off to a great start, but you don't worry about him. But right now, with the way this bullpen is, you only need 5 or 6 innings because they're so good at the back end of that bullpen. I know there's a lot of people getting ready to jump off the bridge again because Brian Shaw had a rough outing. It's amazing. The guy
Brian.
The guy could have 20 straight gems, and he throws one bad one on the board, and everybody's ready to find the 480 bridge and throw him off the edge of it. I mean, yeah, I will say this about Brian Shaw: when he has a stinker, he makes it count. He gets all the ugly out.
He gets it all out of the way.
He gets it all out of the way. It's not like he's like having a couple bad ones and just spread it around.
That's what hurts his ERA. He can't bring it down. It takes him all year to bring it down a little bit.
It's like getting an F in college. It's so hard to get that F to bring it back up once you have it on your record.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the rest of the bullpen is just nails, and I think that that's really what they're riding right now until the hitters get going. They still they're not where they want to be right now. When they get Kipnis back, then you're going to wonder, well, how they're going to do that. They got some shuffling to do. Brantley's just rounding back into form. Chisenhall's just coming off the disabled list. And then Encarnacion, I think the way he's playing, every swing he is trying to justify that big contract. I just think he has to get back into playing baseball. If there's such thing as caring too much, that's probably where he is right now.
1 RBI in 12 games.
Yeah, and I think it was a home run.
Yeah.
So
he knocked himself in.
I was at the opener, and he had back-to-back 5-4 threes. It's gonna, with the bases loaded, it's gonna happen, and he'll be fine. I think that he just needs to get some confidence going and just convince himself. He can say it all he wants, but convince himself in his mind that I don't have to justify this contract every time I get up there to the plate. And I think he's just pressing right now.
How about the catchers, John? Neither one appears that they are able to hit.
Well,
Is that going to be a season-long problem?
Probably, just because that's what neither one of those catchers, Roberto Perez nor Yan Gomes, is on this team because of their offense. They're both tremendous game callers that don't let guys steal on them. What you get out of them offensively, I think, is a bonus. I mean, of course, you don't want them to go out there and put a 0.51 batting average on the board. I mean, because then it's really, really bad. But if either one of these guys comes out and hits 240 with a dozen home runs or something, that's what you want these guys to do, is to call a good game and manage this great pitching staff. Don't let guys steal base. Keep them on close on first so they can't do hit and runs. And that's really what their forte is. I don't think that they really need these guys to go out there and be the productive hitter that a Jason Kipnis and a Carlos Santana is. It would be nice, but ideally, I don't think that's really the most important thing for their contributions to the team.
Last year, they won 94 games. They could actually win less this year, but be better. Does that make sense?
Sure, yeah, I think so. And I think a big function to that is I think the American League Central is better this year. I think Minnesota's better than they were last year. Detroit wasn't bad last year. They were just bad against the Indians. I think last year they were something like
4-14.
Oh, it was just awful. Yeah. So if they bring that back, so they still have a good team. I think Kansas City's probably on their last leg as far as contending because they've got a ton of free agents after this year. I think that they need to win this year. So I think that they're pretty good this year. The only team in the division that I don't think is real great is a team that just swept the Indians, the Chicago White Sox. Mm-hmm. But they're professional athletes, and the other team is trying too. I know everybody expects the Indians to just go out there and roll everybody, but the other team's got guys getting paid too. So it's going to be tough. I agree with you. I think they might come in around 89 to 91 wins this year and might be a better team.
Mm-hmm. Terry Francona is their biggest asset, do you think?
I think so. Yeah, the way that he manages it. We talked a little bit about Steve French a little bit ago. I'm not saying that they were one and the same, but Tito manages the same way in that he gets guys to buy in. Those guys just love him. When he calls someone into their office and says, "Okay, we need you to do this. We need you to do this," he's got carte blanche because they believe in him. They believe in his process. When he brought in Brian Shaw and Cody Allen and Miller last year and told them this is what my plans are for the bullpen, how we're going to work this, everybody checked their egos at the door and they did what they were asked to do. And that's what Tito Francona is. He's just a tremendous clubhouse guy, and the guys just love playing for him. It doesn't matter who you talk to. You talk to the guys he managed in Boston to this day, they will say that he was just a driving force about their championship rings. Mm-hmm.
Let's go to the Browns now. The NFL draft, of course, is coming up.
Yes.
Are they getting the kid from Texas?
That would be the odds-on favorite to go with Garrett. They always say take the best player on the board, and I think he's the closest thing there is to a sure thing. The Myles Garrett just make things happen. You see what he did at the combine as far as what he ran in the 40, his lifting. I mean, guys that big don't do that, and I think he's the safest pick. And I think it's not just he's safe, but he's good. And he's the kind of guy that just can affect a game. You put him on the outside with some of the other guys that they've drafted over the years. I think that front seven has a chance to be pretty good. I like having Collins on the linebacker. He signed him to an extension. I think that if you put a Garrett in there, he makes their players around a little bit better because if he gets upfield, so much can happen now because you might have to put somebody else to double team on him because he's so quick that opens something up coming up the middle with your other defenders. So I think he's the best player. I think that they do need to take him.
Of course, you saw the kid from Menor, the Cardinals there.
Yes.
Talk about him. What did you see? I mean, you saw him firsthand. How did he look?
Mitchell is a great kid, a great family. I think that's the one thing that most people they don't talk about. Jeannie and Dave are great parents. I mean, his sister, brothers, just great people up there. They do everything together. Mitchell was home this weekend for Easter, and they had all these pictures together. He is just a family guy, and I would love to see him with the Cleveland Browns. I just don't want to see him at 1. I don't think that's
right.
I don't think that's where he needs to go. If he's there at 12, the Browns have to trade up a couple of slots. I mean, he wants to play for the Browns. This is where his hometown is. He would do them proud, but I don't think he's the first overall pick.
Mm-hmm. Do you see the Browns, of course the schedule hasn't come out yet, but I think it's due to come out here. It usually comes out around draft time.
Yes.
Do you see the Browns, how do I want to say this? Are they capable of winning, let's say, 6 games, you think? I know we haven't seen the schedule come out yet, but is there enough improvement that you think they've made or plan on making to see 6 wins?
I think there is for a couple reasons. I think that in order to win games, you need to be able to control the line of scrimmage. And they very much addressed that with free agency. They brought in the best guard in the league from the Cincinnati Bengals. They brought in a new center. They brought in 2 guards, as a matter of fact. I think if they can get one of these younger linemen that they drafted last year, maybe Coleman, to take on the right tackle position, they just couldn't block anybody last year. And if you don't block anybody, you're not going to move the ball. I think that they're going to be able to block people this year. They will be able to run the ball with Crowell. I mean, he had a great year last year. They don't need someone to come out here and throw for 5,000 yards. They need a game manager who's going to hit the passes, who's going to move the chains. Is Osweiler that guy? I don't know. I don't think so. But I would rather see them go with an Osweiler than trade the farm and go with a second-round draft pick, maybe like a Patrick Mahomes or something. I think that they have the ability on offense right now with that line to be able to move the ball, move the chains, and keep their defense off the field. I don't think their defense would be as awful if they weren't on the field so often, and that just kills them.
Would you be surprised if the Browns did not draft the kid from Texas?
Yes, I would. I would. I think that would take them trading down. If they stay at 1, I don't know how you go in another direction. But then again, I'm not an NFL owner, so I'm not really sure how that all goes. But if they do take Mitchell at number 1, I understand it. I'm not really sure that's the best thing to do. But you look at it this way: they've had 26 quarterbacks since they've come back into the league in 1999. You got to get one. If you believe he's your guy, you better take him at 1.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering if they would get him because I hear the Steelers might be interested in him.
Yeah, the Steelers. Sooner or later, the Steelers got to start thinking about life after Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, and that's coming quicker than we think.
He does not fall into the spring chicken category anymore, and Mitch is going to fall into that category. I'm sure they're going to look at a lot of different people. Mahomes makes a lot of sense. Mahomes comes from the same type of offense at Texas, where he was at Texas Tech, right?
Yes.
As than Roethlisberger did when he was at Findlay. They were both that shotgun spread wide stuff. And Roethlisberger, I don't think he ever got under center until he got to the NFL. Yeah, I know he didn't in high school. So, and I think the same way with Mahomes now. That might be someone they might look at because they're almost facsimiles about the type of style they were. But yeah, at some point, Pittsburgh's got to start looking at a quarterback too.
Mm-hmm. Let's close with Ohio State, John, because I know you're a big Ohio State fan. The bowl game, their last bowl game that they played, not necessarily did we think, we didn't know if they could win or lose, but did you think they'd lose that poorly and get shut out?
No, I don't think anybody saw that coming. But I think that was the culmination that Urban needed to change something. And I think that he kind of thought maybe in the back of his mind that he did have to change something because they weren't moving the ball like they normally had. Urban Meyer's offenses have historically, and he said it, we need to stretch the field from sideline to sideline and from end zone to end zone. We need the defense to have to defend everything. And they didn't last year. Last year, all they were sideline to sideline. There was nothing. It was downfield. And I think that maybe that was the rude awakening that they or he needed to say, hey, we have to make some wholesale changes about how we do things. And it might not be personnel-wise. It might just be what the scheme was. Because every passing play they ran last year was an out to the sidelines, a curl on the inside where they were standing still when they caught the ball. You never saw those go routes, those post patterns where you catch it, you hit them in stride. They just weren't there. So I think that's what Kevin Wilson is supposed to bring to that. So we'll see if they do it this year.
Mm-hmm. Big Ten's getting better?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's getting a lot better. I think
Penn State's on the rebound?
Penn State has successfully rebounded from their purgatory, and I think that they're getting their scholarships back, and these players are starting to get in there now. I think Franklin's going to be fine over there. I really like what Harbaugh's doing up at Michigan. They just overall, Paul Christ. I mean, Christ is just such an extension of what their previous coaches were out there. Where he's the system. He's the next guy who brings in there. The guy who was like Bielema was there, and then even before that, Alvarez. Guys just come out and line up with those big hogs and run the ball down your throat, and that's what they are, and they win with that. I think Minnesota's going to be a lot better now with PJ Fleck up there coaching. Mm-hmm. So just all the way around, the Big Ten's in pretty good shape. Ferentz has had some real good years out of Iowa, so it's going to be tough, and we'll see how the Buckeyes do this year because they got that Big Ten slate. They also got to play Oklahoma again this year, so it's great schedule again.
Well, John, I want to thank you very much for coming on the show today. You brought a lot of insight and input to sports here that I'd like my viewers to hear every now and then, and you're one of the best that can cover that.
Hey, I appreciate you having me, Chuck. I really do. It's always a pleasure.
John Kampf of the Lake County News Herald, my guest today. Next week, we will have J.P. Ducro on as our guest. Have a good night, everybody.